Hey everyone, I'm Marbozir and welcome to Endless Legend, a new 4x turn-based strategy game developed by Amplitude Studios, the makers of Endless Space. The game is still in alpha as of this video, but it's definitely interesting enough to show off. The main purpose of this series is to do exactly that, to show the game, explain the core game mechanics, show you why it's interesting or what makes it different from other 4x games. So this is also going to be kind of a quick game guide slash tutorial slash introduction or whatever you want to call it. The game is currently available in the Steam Early Access program, but do keep in mind that the build that I'm playing here is an early alpha build, which means that not only the game is not done yet, it's actually not even feature complete as of this video, which was recorded on the 1st May 2014, in case you're from the future. Having said that, the game is pretty damn good even for an early state like this. So enough talk, let's actually do something. I'm going to start a new game. Now there are 4 factions in the game right now, but before I go into factions, I'll show you the basic game setup options. So you can pick the number of empires you want to play against. The minimum is 2, that includes you, so in this case I will be playing against 1 AI. The maximum is 6, in which case I will be playing against 5 AIs. I'll go with 4. You can pick the region size, I'll explain what this actually means once we get into the game, but this is kind of important. The regions are kind of a unique feature of this game, at least compared to other games of this type. You can pick the temperature, which will mostly dictate what kind of terrain you will mostly see in the game. You can pick world shape. Now, the only options available right now are Pangea and Small Pangea, and no ocean. That's mostly because, as of this build, there is no way to cross the ocean or sea. So, if there was an islands type of template available, you would actually be unable to get to the other islands, because there is no way to cross the sea right now. And you can pick the world size. I'm going with normal, that's more than big enough actually. I might even go for small for the purpose of this game. Yeah, I'll actually go for small and maybe play with 3 empires. Alright then. So there are some advanced settings, which are, well, there aren't that many. So for example, under seed, there's only one option right now, random. I assume this is going to change in the future. In case of ward wrap, you can decide whether the ward is going to wrap or not, which is fairly self-explanatory, I guess. So let's actually go into the factions. There are 4 factions in the game at the moment, and they are all fairly unique in their playstyles. I won't be going in depth into all the things that make factions unique. I'll just explain roughly how the factions play. So we got the Windwalkers, which is more or less a builder's faction. They get a lot of bonuses to building speed. You can build a lot of stuff in your cities. If you are the empire builder type and you like to develop your cities a lot, this is more or less the perfect faction for you. One of their unique features is that they get +1 production on all terrain with forest. So if you get a lot of forests, you will get a ton of production. They have all kinds of other production bonuses as well. You can have massive production in your cities as this faction. So there are also Broken Lords, which is a faction that basically doesn't use food. You use dust instead, which is this game's version of gold. So you don't use food at all, you use gold instead. But that means you are very gold dependent. If you're low on gold, as this faction, you're in trouble, let's just say. Next up we got the Volters, which is kind of a scientific oriented faction. So for example, they get +1 science on all terrain that already has science. They generally have the strongest research out of all factions, especially if you actually focus on it. And we have the Necrophages, which is a fairly unique faction. This is the most warmongering faction of all of them. They do get -1 food on all terrain with food, but unlike the Broken Rolls, they do actually use food, they just get a food penalty on all terrain with food. They have some other unique traits, but I'm not going to discuss them right now. This is basically the warmongering faction. If you like war, this is a pretty good faction to play as. So I'm actually going to play as Windwalkers, because that's a pretty good faction to start with. They are fairly straightforward. They mostly focus on production bonuses and buildings. So there's nothing super complicated about that. And let's go into the game. I'll let the AIs play as random. So let's get started. So here we are. The game definitely has an interesting art style. Whether you like the art direction of the game or not, that's definitely going to be a matter of taste. So, when you first start the game, you get a settler and two basic military units, the Carry Ranger in this case. You can split them up, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, just to scout this area around a little bit before I decide my first city. Now, there are a few really important things to talk about before you start your first city, but I'll explore the area a little bit first, before I actually go into that. So, let's split this into a separate army. And this guy as well, and I'll send this one here and the other one here. Alright, I think we see more than enough for now. Before you decide your first city, you need to know the number one most important thing about this. In this game, the map is divided into regions, so this is the region we actually started in, the Nia Egor or whatever. I don't even know how to pronounce that. And you can only start one city in a region. That's very, very important to know about. If you don't know that, you might kind of get screwed if you start a city and then notice a much superior location inside the same region, but you will not be able to start a city there anymore because you already have one. So with that in mind, let's have a look at tile yields. You can turn on both the hexes. The game does use hex grid. And you can turn on tile yields, which in this game is called FIDSI. That's short for Food, Industry, Dust, Science and Influence. The first four are fairly self-explanatory. Influence is basically a resource that you use for various decisions. You use influence for diplomacy, so for example you can't make any kinds of deals without using influence. You can't even declare war without influence. But it's also used for some strategic decisions, for some empire development decisions. It's not only used for diplomacy, it's a very important resource. Anyway, these are tile yields around us. Now, unlike in Civilization, you don't actually assign workers to one tile at a time. You get instant benefit from all the tiles inside your city border. And in this case, your city border initially looks like this. So we want to find a location that will give us as many resources as possible. I don't see a river, because in this game rivers are quite valuable. They are not a big deal at the start of the game, but as the game progresses and as you get extra technologies, you can get extra yields on tiles with rivers. So if there is a river, it's usually worth settling nearby. But in our case, we are the wild walkers, so we get production bonuses from forests, which means we might want to focus on the forests. There are a few special tile types, which are anomalies, luxury resources and strategic resources. You don't need to have strategic resources or luxury resources inside your actual city border, you just need them to be in the actual region. But there are also anomalies, which are basically super-powered tiles. This is an anomaly, for example, Azotic Exotics. The text on the top is basically flavor text, and the actual effect is on the bottom. So this tile gets 2 food, 2 production, and 3 science. As I said, this is basically a super-powered tile. That's pretty much what it is. The anomalies are only positive in here. So I think this is going to be a pretty solid location right here. In fact, this city might go exactly here, or maybe on the left side. If I start on the right side, I will get 1 extra production. If I start on the left side, I will get 1 extra food and 1 extra gold. But I will also get science. Yep, I'll get a little bit of extra science on the right side. If I move left, I lose 2 science, because I gain +2 from this tile, but I lose 4 from these 2. I think I prefer this location. This is a pretty decent balance. We'll get quite a few tiles with forests. Okay, let's start our city right here. So, we also have a minor faction. Every region has a minor faction. And the way minor factions work, the minor factions are actually one of the more important gameplay features in the game and an important strategic consideration. You can do a few things about minor factions. Minor factions are villages which will spawn units. In this case, that's going to be this exact unit. And these units can and will attack you. They can actually siege your cities. So you have to pacify them. And you can pacify them by actually attacking them. You can do it by bribing them, which requires a technology. I'll talk about research in a bit. Or you can get a quest from them. I'll also talk about quests in a bit. There are 3 different ways to pacify them. Once you pacify them, you can assimilate them. You can have up to 3 factions assimilated during the game. At the start of the game, just 1. And assimilating the faction will give you exactly this. You will be able to use this unit. This is a cavalry unit. And you will get these bonuses. You will get plus 5% food in cities and plus 5% per pacified village in city. Well, in this case, in my one city right here. So this is actually very important. There are a lot of minor factions in the game, and these empire bonuses can be really important. Not to mention these units can also be pretty damn strong. There are some factions with really strong unit types. This is the only way to actually get access to that unit, to assimilate this faction. You can't get this unit through research, for example. That's a unit that's exclusive to this faction. So right now, since I don't have the technology that would allow me to bribe them or get a quest, I can either attack them with my army or I can just wait to get the technology. I'll probably just wait because I want to show you the quest. The quests from minor factions can actually be really damn good. The rewards that you get from these quests can be really strong. You can even get technologies as rewards, for example, which are technologies that are not accessible otherwise. If you get a technology as a reward from a quest, that's a technology that you can't actually research yourself. Anyway, that village is actually right next to our city, so I could attack it if I really wanted to. Anyway, let's actually go into the city. Now, you can actually see what's in your region right here. So, if I look at this icon means that we have a luxury resource in this region, the spices. Now, I can't actually improve the spices because you only start getting benefit from the luxury resource if you build an extractor or whatever it's called, if you build a special building on top of it. But I can't do that before getting a technology that unlocks that building. I'll actually go into technologies in a moment. I can also see that I have a resource that has not been discovered yet, so I need to explore this region to find what's indicated by the question mark right here. This is the minor faction that's inside a region. Every region generally has a minor faction. It can have more than one village. You can have multiple villages that belong to the minor faction. And the minor faction is still hostile towards us, which means we did not pacify them. This is the happiness of our region. Right now it's not really affected by a lot of modifiers. We get plus 60 from approval. The more you expand, the more penalties you will get. And this is our city growth. This is how fast our city will grow. In this case, it's going to be in 4 turns. We currently get minus 10 dust due to upkeep, but we also gain 14 dust, so the net change per turn is plus 4. I can click browse to see all the improvement list. Right now we only have the palace, which gives us plus 22 dust, plus 4 city defense cap on city, and we have the city hall, which gives us plus 4 to all yields basically. And it also gives us, and it costs 10 upkeep per turn, also plus 2 vision. Anyway, the way production or yields work in this game is that you have a certain number of workers which are basically equal to your city pop. So since our city is population 1, as you can see right here, indicated by this number, we have 1 worker. We can move this worker between various categories, so I can assign him to production, and then he will give us more production. In this case, we get plus 4, so we get 15 instead of 11. We can assign him to food, which then gives us 5 food instead of 1. We can assign him to science, again plus 4. We can assign him to gold, or we could assign him to influence. In this case, that's going to be plus 2. Now, since assigning him to food will make a difference in city growth of what, 16 turns difference, I will definitely assign him to food. And we have a few buildings that we can start building right at the start of the game. You do have access to a settler and to a basic unit, this person, the carry ranger. So I could recruit more units if I wanted to. I could disband the city, which would make me lose the game, so that's not such a good idea. There's this building, which is a unique one-time building that you can only build once in your entire empire. This gives you +2 to all yields and +1 influence. This is not really relevant late into the game, but it's kind of important early on. You can also build sewer system. These are actually technologies that you start with. The seed storage and sewer system are technologies. You already have them researched. This gives us +25 happiness on city, +1 influence, and -1 dust in upkeep. And we can build the seed storage, which gives us +10 flat food, not percentage, and +20% percentage food on the city. This is one of the more important buildings for city growth, so we will start from that. We can also assign a governor. Now, there are heroes in the game, and you can see heroes if you go to the academy screen. We do have one hero right at the start. You don't have to hire a hero, you start with the hero. Now every hero has a skill tree, that's this thing right here, and as you might have guessed, as he levels up he gets skill points, and you can assign these skill points right here. You can assign up to 3 skill points in various skills in here, sometimes 2. And this entire right side of the tree is unique to your faction, so we get these skills because we're windwalkers or wildwalkers, I keep confusing that. And these are mostly production based. So for example, the natural resources trait, which is a very early one, gives you flat +5 production, +10 or +15. This is pretty good in small cities, but you can also get additional production on terrain with forest, up to +3 production on terrain with forest. So this can snowball massively. You can assign him as a governor to one of your cities, and that city will benefit from these bonuses. You can also assign him to an army, which then will give that army bonuses if you actually have these skills. So for example, this is a skill that gives you extra movement on the unit he's assigned to. You can get extra vision range. You can get extra accessory slot on the hero, because a hero can use items. I'll go into that in a moment. You can get extra strength, basically, attacks, extra range on ranged units, extra critical. Or you can focus on the middle part of the tree, which gives you, for example, extra experience on units, extra recovery speed if your hero is wounded. Because if you lose a battle with a hero, he will get wounded and you will have to wait to actually assign him to anything again. You can increase defenses in a city he's assigned to, but you can also get bonuses in the city. The middle part of the tree are bonuses that benefit both units and cities. The left side are bonuses that benefit only units, and the right side, in our case, are bonuses that benefit only cities. Right now we don't have any skill points, so we can't do that. You can also equip your hero. Not only that, you can also equip units, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Right now we have access to basic equipment, because we just started the game. So we have the basic armor. So these stats mean attack, which is fairly self-explanatory. This is the ability of this unit to attack successfully and do damage. Initiative, which dictates the turn order, basically. It will make more sense once you see how combat works. But the more initiative you have, the earlier you can attack in combat. So this is kind of an important stat for ranged units, for example, because you want to shoot before something hits you in the face with a hammer. Defense, which is self-explanatory, and critical chance. So this is the chance to inflict critical damage. I think this is both critical chance and critical damage, in fact. Either way, critical is extra damage, basically. So, we only have a basic armor type. This gives us +1 defense and -1 initiative, +2 defense, -1 initiative, and +1 defense, -1 initiative. This does cost money, or in this case production. You can assign these items to units. The screen for doing that looks exactly the same. So I can actually edit this guy, the carry ranger, I can also create a completely new Dekari Ranger and give him different equipment if I want to do that. I can name him like I want to. So, Ranger 2 or whatever. Yes, that's not very imaginative, but this is for the purpose of demonstration. Now, the first Ranger... Yeah, let's leave this. The first Ranger doesn't actually have armor, and that's because the default template maximizes initiative. If I were to give him armor, that would increase his defenses, but it would also lower his initiative, which is not necessarily what you want on a ranged unit. It will also increase the cost without really giving you any good benefit. But I will actually replace the crossbow, which is a 100 range weapon, with a 200 range weapon, the longbow in this case. That gives us more attack and more initiative. I would say that this is definitely a better option if we want to maximize damage and don't care about defense all that much. So I will accept that. Now I can actually pay to upgrade or retrofit my existing units, which will cost me 4 gold. In this case, I will do that. And I will do that with the other unit. I could create a second completely different ranger type, which kind of matters because as you progress through the game, you get equipment that's more limited. Because right now, these items are basically unlimited. I can get as many of those as I want. But as you progress and get certain technologies, you get gear that's limited by strategic resources, for example. And the way strategic resources work is they increase your total pool of strategic resources. You have limited amounts. And you might run out and then be unable to produce that kind of gear anymore. Which is the main reason to maybe have more than one type of this specific unit designed. You could have a unit that doesn't use any strategic resources, and you could have a stronger separate design that uses strategic resources. That's more limited in availability. So let's actually end this turn and maybe do something. I could attack this minor village just to show you how combat actually works. If I assign my hero to the army... Oh yeah, we didn't pick research. So let's talk about research. Now, the way research works in the game is divided into eras. There are 6 eras. The last 2 are currently unavailable in the build that I'm playing. There's just nothing here. There are no technologies in these 2. And the way it works, this is not actually a tree. These are just groups of technologies. You can research anything in the era you're in, or in the previous one, if you want to. And the way you progress to the next one is by researching certain number of technologies. So I will progress to the next era, which unlocks certain game features and things. If I research 10 technologies in the first one, I can research anything on this tree. And some of these technologies actually unlock the game-defining features. So for example, right now I have this option right here, which is a marketplace, but I can't even access that. And that's because I don't have the technology that will unlock it. That's this technology up here. What I like to start with is either this or this. Now, these 4 regions of this circle or whatever are basically technology types. The left side are economy and population techs, the top part are military techs, the right side are science and industry, and the bottom part are empire and expansion. This doesn't actually have any meaning other than giving you a general idea of what kind of technologies these are. If you are looking for military techs, you can just look at the top of the tree. So, this is the technology that would allow us to actually do something for the minor faction. This will allow us to talk with the faction and not necessarily attack them. We'll start from that one. And maybe check if they have any interesting quests for us. Now we can actually end the turn. And we got a first quest. We got a quest to explore the map and search 3 ruins. Alright then, so there are a lot of ruin sites on the map which you can explore. And the way ruins work is that every faction can explore each ruin site once. So the ruins do not actually disappear once you explore them, like they do in, let's say, Civilization 5. And there is a technology here that actually increases our search on ruins. This improves your chances to succeed. You might have nothing in the ruin, you might have some gold, you might have a quest in the ruin. There are a lot of different quests in the game. I will talk about quests a little bit in depth a little bit later. Right now our first quest is to just search 3 ruins. That's not super complicated, and our reward is going to be 20 luxury resource. So that's that. It will be added to city supplies. So let's keep moving then. We still need to find one resource inside our own region, because there's that question mark. It has to be somewhere around here. That's an anomaly, so that's a pretty good one. This is what I was talking about. If you find a location inside your own region that's way superior to the one you settled, you can't change your mind. Especially with your first city, you can actually remove your city, but if you remove your first city, you are kind of screwed. You just lose the game, more or less. So this anomaly is actually quite nice. As you can see, this is +4 food, 2 production, 1 science, 1 food, 10 morale. But our location is still pretty good. But this is a good reason to explore your region before you actually decide which city, which location to settle. Right, our research is done. Let's research the search party. This will improve our ruin search. There is one ruin right here, so I could decide to ignore it until I have that technology. It will only take 3 turns, so I think it's actually worth waiting for that. We will actually wait for that. However, this is getting a little bit long. I will continue the game and show you some other game mechanics in the next part. So, thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.